how did I break my arm and how did it feel when I broke it? As a matter of fact, I actually didn't break the arm, I broke the hand. So the pinky has a bone that goes and connects itself to the wrist. That's the bone that I broke a couple of times, and it was quite unfortunate the way that I broke it. I was riding my bike to work in the morning and I was on the bridge. The bridge is actually quite narrow to a large degree, and what happened was that the person on the other side was actually slightly encroaching on my lane, which is probably okay, but I wanted to get out of his way, and when I did, my finger clipped onto the metal palings on the side, and as it clipped, it basically just made it go into a 90-degree angle, and it basically just crushed and broke the bones that are in there. The really annoying part with that is, at least what I'm noticing, is that because it's connected to your wrist, every time you move the finger or you move the wrist, you're basically interacting with the broken bone, and every time you interact with the broken bone, it is quite painful. I'm sure that it'll be okay. The doctors say 6 weeks. You can't move it for about 6 weeks because that's about 50% of its recovery there, which means that I can go back to my day-to-day things. After that, I just can't exert too much pressure there, or I shouldn't really be doing any sports, anything like that, anything too crazy really where that could fracture again. And then after about 3 months, it goes to about 80%. So it gets about 80% of its strength back, and then a couple of months after that, and some people even say years after that, it gets its 100% strength. So that's where we are at the moment. So when I actually crashed, I got up and I thought, things are sort of looking okay up until I saw my finger. And when I took my gloves off, the finger went back into its normal position. As normal as it possibly can be. But when I took my gloves off, it sort of looked like this. It was definitely pointing a little bit sort of out. And I was about 7 k's, give or take, away from my car. And then probably about the same distance. I was about halfway to my work. So what I did was I turned around, I rode my bike back, and I just basically put my hand on the side and just sort of dropped it. So it didn't, I basically wasn't even using my hand. I was only using my left hand to ride my bike back. And because it was quite a violent fall and it was about 30 k's an hour, 25, the downside to that being that I actually fell down quite hard, and there's a fair bit of bruising on the hand. I also sort of bruised my leg. I rode my bike back to the car. I put it back onto the rack, racked it. I went home just basically to drop the bike off, which the front wheel of it is buckled, so I'll need to get that replaced at some point in time. And then went to the doctors, and the doctors saw me, and they sort of did a bit of a look around, whether I can move some fingers and all that sort of stuff, and everything was quite painful. At that stage, it was actually starting to get a little bit numb in the fingers as well. And after that, they basically just said, look, we can't help you here. Go to the hospital, go to the emergency department. So it's exactly what I did. So while I was in hospital, there are 2 lanes. There's a fast lane and there's a slow lane. And I think the fast lane is really for those people that don't need a bed. They can just patch you up and basically send you home. And that's exactly what ended up happening. So they patched me up. I actually went inside, got an examination done. They sort of thought it was going to be broken, but they weren't sure. But obviously once I got the CT done, which took all up from entry to exit about 2 hours, they saw that it was broken in a couple of places. And I think it's a new thing for me, obviously, having a broken hand, but it's not a new thing for the people that work there. It's something that they see quite often, the people that work there, and they were absolutely fantastic. So the doctor that looked after me, and obviously the nurses and all the other staff were absolutely fantastic. What ended up happening is because I had quite a bit of swelling, and I don't know if they do this with everyone, I'm sure that they do, but so I've got plaster or fiberglass that's underneath, and it just helps support the hand so the hand doesn't move, so these bones basically get enough time to fuse together. And so what happens is that you wrap it around with basically these bandages, if you want to call it that, and that just makes sure that your hand is sitting nicely on this molded fiberglass at the bottom of it. So I'll be having this for about 10 days. Then I go into the hospital again. They'll do another x-ray and to make sure that my fingers are quite straight. And if the fingers are straight and everything is healing really well, then what happens is they just let it heal for another 4 weeks, and I take basically that off. And they might even take this off in about 10 days' time and only give me something similar to this, but only for the 2 fingers and the hand. So it just really forces the 2 fingers to be in place rather than the whole hand, which is actually quite annoying. But at the moment, you sort of have to do that because it's still quite broken inside and it hasn't fused together at all. So after the 10 days, I'll get this hopefully taken off, and then we'll have a decision on whether we operate or not. Hopefully not really. I sort of don't want to go there if I can help it, but that's going to be up to the doctors, and it's going to be my decision as well. So depending on, if your finger's sort of like, so what's meant to happen is if the finger goes in like that too much, then that's what causes the problem. Otherwise you can't grab onto things properly and all that sort of stuff. If it grows like normally at the moment, the bone is straight enough, so that's good. So we'll see what happens. And that's pretty much it with the journey with my broken hand, which is quite unfortunate. I wasn't expecting it. And it's come at a pretty annoying time as well, because there's a lot of things that I sort of wanted to do, especially coming to end of the year, the second part of the year, I should say. But it is what it is. You can't you can't do much about it at the moment. So I'm just going to take it easy as much as I possibly can. I can't do too much filming or anything along those lines. Obviously, driving is a big issue, and even working, I've noticed that because I'm on the computer for, most of the day typing with just one hand is actually becoming not only annoying but tiring because you're doing it with one hand. And I'm sort of used to, you think about something and then you just type it. As a software developer, I just go off and, think about a piece of code, and as I'm thinking about it, I'm typing it. Now it's going to be really difficult because you're only doing it with one hand. And the other thing is this hand needs to be elevated. So I need to keep it upright for most parts to reduce the swelling. So you just basically reduce the amount of blood flow to the broken parts of the arm, and hopefully that reduces the swelling down. And if we do have to operate, the swelling can't be there. Otherwise, obviously, they won't be able to do that. And it's going to be a lot harder to do it down the track because in 2 weeks' time, it's not going to be fused together as well. So it'll be, if we do actually need to do that unfortunate exercise, they can snap the bones back pretty much in the same place that it broke quite easily, straighten that out, put some pins in there or whatever else. Otherwise, if the swelling is there, we're going to have to wait till the bone fully heals, which might be another 3-4 weeks, and then sort of start chopping the bone up and doing all sorts of things. So I'm going to try and have it elevated as much as possible, just for that reason, really. If the worst case scenario comes, we can deal with it there and then and not have to wait down the track. Because the longer that you wait, obviously the more annoying and the harder that it will be. So that's pretty much my broken hand journey for the moment. And just really hope that in 6 weeks' time, it'll all be hunky-dory and I can get back to my usual activities, or most of them anyway. I won't be able to play too much sport until maybe 3 months, but I don't do any crazy full contact sports anyway, and even bike riding, I'm just going to have to be quite careful that I don't stack it again, because if you stack it before the bone heals, obviously it's got a pretty good chance at cracking again, and definitely don't want that happening. So anyway, so that's that.